You're listening to the Rent Roll Radio Show with Sterling Chapman.
Hey, Rent Roll Radio listeners, welcome back to the show. As always, I'm your host, Sterling Chapman. Today, we are joined with a really special guest, Jacob Vanhooser. What I really like about Jake is he is actually a big fan of the show and reached out to me just from listening to it and started to, ask me about my experience, and I started to ask him about his, and he turns out to have a tremendous amount of experience. And I thought having him on would be a great value to share with all of the listeners. So maybe he can help out some folks like he's found the previous guest to help him. So Jacob, thank you so much for joining us and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Jacob, do you want to elaborate a little bit on your backstory? Tell us kind of how you got into real estate, what you were doing before, maybe what else you're doing.
Yeah. So by my day job has always been a chiropractor. I got out of school in 2014 and worked at a couple of guys' offices, didn't open our own. And my wife's a chiropractor also. But then my mom had always been doing a little bit of real estate when we were growing up, but not a lot. She had a few houses that she flipped. So I was always interested in kind of being my own boss and kind of having that lifestyle, like the entrepreneur lifestyle. So I worked at these other offices and I had kept dreaming about buying property, but in Nashville, it is pretty expensive. I mean, to get in is even like lots are, in a couple thousands. So it took a little time, but then I ended up having a motorcycle accident, had an accident. And then that kind of like woke me up, and I couldn't be a chiropractor for quite a while because I was on crutches. So I was doing this remote job, and then I just started looking at real estate like every day and ended up finding our first house that we bought in 2017, by far the ugliest house on the block. not even close. But then went in and renovated ourselves, did everything wrong, and then learned a lot, and then rented it for several years. And that was the step one. And then 2018 bought another one, 2019 bought two more. Now we bought two more in 2020. So awesome. Yeah, it's like kept buying.
And you have some other properties as well besides the single family houses. You also tell us about your commercial property.
Yeah, so most of our properties are here in Nashville, Tennessee, where we live, but I'm from Evansville, Indiana, and we currently own a 5-unit small apartment building up there that does great, rents great. It's right downtown, and then about a mile away from that, still downtown, we own a 22,000 square foot commercial building. It's a mostly warehouse space. It's divided into 3 categories. One's about 12,000 square feet, another one's about 8, and the other one's about 4,000. So currently we have one tenant in 10,000 of the square feet, and his rent covers the whole note on the building. And then we have built out that other 4,000 into mini storage because there's a lot of apartments being built in this downtown area. So there's no mini storage. So those are just finishing up right now. And then the other square footage is being possibly built out for like a restaurant food hall concept. So.
Awesome. And I remember we spoke on the phone telling me about that. We love we had one here in Baton Rouge where I'm located, and unfortunately COVID put it out of business, but it was my wife's favorite spot. And I really enjoyed it because, whatever she was going to get, I didn't like necessarily have to go with that option.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, you go to the taco stand, I'm going to get a cheeseburger right here,
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why we kind of liked it too. And really, I'm not in food service and I don't want to be in food service, but I like being a landlord. So we'll just rent the spaces out and then do it that way. And it seems like it'll be a good job. And we bought the building we got such a great price on the building. It was a distressed owner who needed to get out. And so we got it, and we got it for no money down. They financed the down payment for us. And so it was a great deal, 0 money out of pocket. Wow. And it already pays for itself. So
Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. So there's a bunch of questions I have, and I need to start taking notes while people are telling their story, because I generally have like 4 questions and only remember 2 of them because I can only ask one at a time. So the first one is more of a comment about what you said about the first house being the ugliest house on the block, and you doing all the work yourself, and you made a bunch of mistakes. I love that because it's just so naturally a part of your story today. I imagine during the process of going through it, you're like, what the hell have we gotten ourselves into?
Yeah.
I like my first house, it didn't make any money the first year. It was like there was like $10,000 in surprise plumbing work that like would have wiped out my $5,000 in cash flow profit.
Mhm.
And people like constantly come to me with this state of analysis paralysis. We're like, well, what about this deal? I mean, do you think what if this? I'm like, dude, just do it.
Yeah.
You like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you lose money. Like, hopefully you lose money. Hopefully you screw up and learn from it. Like, as
You
long
got to
as you,
learn. Yeah. That's what I tell everyone too, is like the first one's the hardest. You don't know anything. So you're going to learn a lot. And that's what I did. I mean, I was doing like we were doing this renovation. I didn't have the right tools. So I'm like using the wrong tools to try to do it. And it's like, and I'll never do that again. I don't mind still doing some of the work myself, but at the same time, like you can pay this other guy who's way better and way faster and it will do it
yeah,
to get it done. And, cause we ate a lot of months. I mean, it took us a long time to get it. Like we bought it in May and didn't even rent it. It took us like 6 months. And not, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, we didn't replace the roof. We didn't replace a lot of stuff. It was like flooring, cabinets, bathroom vanities and things like that. So, but it's like something that a good little, if you had some subcontractors could knock out in 2 weeks.
right. Yeah, I
But
think a lot of times this whole like I want to save money and do it myself thing is so unpractical because it's a very good point. Like most of the time, other people can do it better than you. I was like that
oh
with
yeah,
property management. I wouldn't let go of property management until it almost got me to like completely quit the industry. And then like when I
yeah,
turned it over, like they were way better at it than me. And that like the money I was spending to pay their property management fee was being covered by the amount that they were saving on the maintenance. You know what I mean? Like I was
yeah,
overpaying for help with maintenance. I was, letting stuff go and it would end up being way more expensive by the time I did address it. So like all the crap I was doing terribly, like that
yeah,
they were handling more efficiently because they had guys that they used all the time. And you know what I'm saying? Like
yep.
it ended up paying for itself because I was just so bad at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like I still manage some of the properties in Nashville just because I've got an app and it's pretty easy here. Like one of them's a condo, so there's really no maintenance to that at all. So that's great.
Yeah.
And then the other couple of houses, I still manage them. I just haven't found a good property manager here that is reasonably priced. In Evansville, where we have that 5 unit, we've gone through. We had initially had a property manager who was awful, did everything wrong, but you got to learn. So I mean, like
Sure.
they were charging us for uh, I mean, pest control and weed control like bi-weekly, and I just hadn't checked it fast enough, and we don't even have any, there's no grass. So I'm like, why are we getting weed control? And I think they're just filling the fees in and pest control. And I was like asking the tenants, I was like, oh yeah, have they come and sprayed? They're supposed to be spraying for pests. They've never been there. I was like, and like these
Yeah.
people live there all the time. So I was like, so we fired them and found we love our property manager now. They're phenomenal. It's so low stress. I would use them over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So
Property managers are funny because a lot of folks like will pick one with the lowest like management fee, but
mhm.
like that's like just the tip of the iceberg really. Cause like,
Yeah,
a lot like my property manager doesn't charge me a fee to fill the units and they don't upcharge on the
yeah,
maintenance. So like I pay a full 10%, but I mean, I guarantee you I'm getting out way ahead over people that are
yeah.
paying an entire month's rent to fill a unit, or I'm going to upcharge your maintenance
I
25%
know.
over
Those are
what the
what's terrible
contract.
is, you have those down times and they're feeing you like crazy. And ours is the same way. They've got a maintenance staff on like in hand, and they're just paying them hourly. So anything that they can do, the maintenance staff, without, I mean, obviously, if a plumber, if we have a big plumbing issue or something, we have to pay for that. But they've got their in-house that does all of the standard maintenance, and we don't get upcharged. It's just the hourly rate, and it works out great.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. So you'd mentioned I'm lucky enough to be in a market where, and there's certainly a lot of negative aspects about the market I live in. Like I don't buy large multifamily properties here, but it is
yeah.
great for these small properties that cash flow real well because of the
Hmm.
rent to price ratio. I mean, it sounds like you were in a market that is not quite the same. We hear this a
Well,
lot
like,
about like California and New York folks where the price
yeah.
is through the roof and you can't barely make anything cash flow. Have you ever considered going out of market? It sounds like you have gone out of
Well,
market a little bit.
that's one of the main reasons we went to Evansville, is because we were looking here and for trying to get some duplexes and triplexes. I mean, because one of the things that we did on that first house that we bought is a lot of the neighborhoods here, you can buy a house and rezone it, or if it's a duplex, you don't have to rezone it, and tear it down and build 2 new houses. So we did that in 2020. So last year we tore down that original really ugly house and built 2 new houses. And the math really does make sense if you find a good builder, and we bought it right. But you have to, it's expensive, and but you find them, like now it's like we had a really bad lender when we first did it, but I interviewed like 15 of them.
How do you finance something like that?
Well, so we've got a local bank that we use now. And so you go straight to them when you're getting either the house or the lot. And I mean, you could do it 2 ways. We went to them and got a construction loan to buy out our previous loan. And then so they have the price of the property plus you go to the contractor and you'll get a bank budget, and they'll give you an estimate on what. So our houses roughly cost $127 a square foot to build, and they were 2,500 square foot houses each. So we needed 750 to pay off the loan, roughly 750,000. So then you go to them and they give you draws, and then it worked out great. And we've used that guy, this most recent bank, the one time, which was great. We used an out of state one out of New Jersey, and it was awful. So finding the right banking contact is huge. And it's so much cheaper with this guy. Like the rate's way better. So that's, those are things you learn.
Now, so you do learn a lot about the banks. One of my biggest pet peeves on banks, and it sounds like you're well aware of this concept if you interviewed 15 of them, but just if a bank doesn't do something, if like that particular bank doesn't do a certain type of loan, they'll tell you nobody does. And there's so many poor souls out there who believe them, and the first 2 banks told me it's not possible, I guess I'll give up and go home. When in reality, you just keep calling. You call 20 something banks, you'll find somebody does it. Just because they don't do it doesn't mean nobody does it.
Exactly. And we had another refi that we didn't want the seasoning period, and they're like, oh, everyone's got a seasoning period.
That's exactly what they told me.
Not everyone's got a seasoning period. So you just got to keep looking. And luckily, I think these smaller, more aggressive banks, those are the ones you can go to. You can't go to the bigger ones. And that helps.
That is the exact scenario that I'm talking about. So on my first 2 houses were traditional. I just did a 30-year loan with 15% down. And then my third one was really kind of out of the box. It was a set of duplexes, and I did a BRRRR type deal, but it was a cash out refinance, and it was real complex because I didn't have the money or the experience. So I had a friend of mine that flipped houses, buy the property, use his investor's capital to fix it up, add me to the title, and then I came in and did a cash out refinance at the end to buy them off. And so it was essential that I could do a cash out refinance day one on title. And some of the banks were looking at as a sale versus a refi and this and that. And the banks that didn't want to do it sat there and nobody's going to do that. Quit, stop trying. Nobody's going to do it. And I'm like, and after it worked, I really kind of wanted to go back and be like, hey, you either lied or you don't know what you're talking about. So either way, I don't want to do business with you.
I know we've gone through some bad banks, and it's nice when you do finally find the good ones. And if you got the banker's number, you can call them. That's how in Evansville and in Nashville, we finally got to that point where I feel good about, I can call this guy anytime, he'll get back to me, because you get with some of them and they just don't even respond. And it's just, it takes a long time. And it's when you're looking in Nashville, you don't have a lot of time. You got to be ready to, hey, can we make sure, can we get 750 to do this?
Responsiveness and sense of urgency is the number one trait I look for in any vendor of any sort. And maybe that's just because I'm incredibly impatient, but I feel like the world out there is fast paced in this industry, and you got to be that way. So, in that situation that I described in that first one with the duplexes, the bank that said they were going to do it last minute pulled out, and they said they would do a loan to cost, 80% loan to cost. I said, well, that doesn't work that way. We verified up front, we had to do loan to value to pay everybody off. So I called 20 banks and said, hey, first one to get it done, gets the business. And this girl at one of the local banks got it done in 3 hours. She goes, you're approved. I'll do it. I'll be there Tuesday. And I never looked back, and I've used her on every single deal since. And I pay higher fees to use her. I looked at I'm buying 2 houses right now with her, and I looked at the HUD, and it made me cringe. I was like, whoa, man, that's a lot of fees on there. But that like her sense of urgency and responsiveness is worth it to
Yeah.
me.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, there's some things you're going to pay a little extra just to have somebody, they're going to show up, they're going to get it done. Like, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so how did you fund the other single family houses that you did?
So most of the time, like I've got a partner that I work with for most of mine, and he lives in Ohio now, but we were college buddies. So we've normally just financed them. We put the money down, but with the bank, like sometimes we've gotten lucky and only had to put 10% down. We did we've done two deals that were owner finance, like I said. So essentially they just covered the down payment and we pay them a couple $100 a month. And
Now,
and then we can
now,
refi out of that.
so the two Odor Finance deals, I want to dive a little bit more into those. Are you talking about, was that the 5-unit complex and the commercial
No,
property?
the commercial property was, so it was $250,000, which is substantially cheap for a building that size. I
Sure.
mean, the lot's worth more than that, but so it's 250,000. So we needed roughly like 50, like at closing, we needed like 54,000. And we didn't want to bring it because we knew there was some money we needed to put into part of the roof and some other things.
Sure.
So we were like, well, we'll buy the building, we'll give you the full ask, but you just owner finance the down payment. So he would get
Got it.
his money. We just didn't have to bring the 50,000, and then he just financed it. We pay him a monthly. We have up to 5 years to pay it off. We can pay it off. There's no prepayment penalty or anything. So that has worked out. We've had that property for a little over a year, and it's worked out great. We pay him monthly, and he's happy. He got the building sold. He just needed the cash and get out of it. He sold a business, and then the other one was different because it wasn't owner finance for the just down payment. It was owner finance for the whole house. So it was a guy in Nashville. He bought this house, and he bought it for probably 10. If you bought before 2007 here, you made out like, I mean, you're crushing life because you could buy these houses for, 20,000, and now just the lot is worth 250 or 300,000. So this guy's paid, the house is paid off, whatever. He gave us 18 months. We paid him 10 grand down, just essentially to hold it, and then we pay him $1,200 a month, and he just holds the note. We're going to refinance out where we just finished renovating it right now. We're going to put renters in it. So it was 260,000, paid him 10, and we pay him, it's $1,250 a month.
Yeah.
That's the rent he was getting as a Section 8 housing, I guess.
I love how you said there's no prepayment penalty, because there's people get, like, I think there's such a construct in the market for like financing, especially like new investors coming in that maybe don't have the financial means that, like, we might, like, coming in as professionals from other careers, right? We're the darlings to the banks. They're like, oh, W-2 income, yeah, whatever you need, but a lot of folks that you run into, they're kind of like, they're starting as wholesalers, they're not coming from the same, financial position that we came into this thing for. And so I think they get hooked on the concept of seller financing because it's their easy way in. But, my experience with that has been that, like, just because it's a seller finance deal doesn't mean it's a great deal, and watch for what the terms are, because I have a bunch of seller finance properties right now that I was happy as could be to get at the time, because it was like very, very low amount of money down. But I would love to refinance them now because rates have just, fallen off the cliff.
Yeah.
And I have a 5% prepayment penalty on them for the next 5 years. So I'm kind of like stuck in these higher rate deals.
Yeah, and I always try to get that in because I don't know where I'm going to be in a little bit. And sometimes, like you said, the rates are so great. I want to refinance all these things as fast as I can and go ahead and get their money paid off and be done. But yeah, that's like, I know a lot of people like who talk to me because I don't consider myself a seasoned investor yet. I've experienced, but I'm not, I'm not an expert yet. But you never really are probably in this.
Sure.
And I love talking to people who are, like you always say, 6 months or a year ahead of you. And I think that's almost better than, because I go to the local events here, and some of the guys are probably 20 years ahead of me.
Right.
And that's almost too far.
Connection.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, I've got 1,600 units and they're here now. I'm like, I'd love to be there, but I got this, I'm skipping a few steps if I go straight to you. So I love talking to the guys who were just getting out and finding that first 50 unit building, because that's where I want to be in the next, 18 months is finding, I had a group of guys that we were talking about going in on a 120 unit in Evans, or like outside of Evansville where I'm from. And it was only about a $1.5 million deal, but they had like 26 investors involved. And I personally,
120 unit for 1.5 million. What is that? 10,000 a door?
This place was pretty bad, but yeah, I mean, it needed a lot, but yeah, it was a stupid cheap deal. It was a mom and pop. Somebody knew the people who were selling it. And I don't think they didn't know what they had, because it was,
Sure.
yeah, but there were so many investors involved, and people were butting heads. And so I just didn't end up doing anything with it. But I mean, I kicked myself because I should have, but
yeah, I can't think of a market that wouldn't work in 10,000 a door.
No, it definitely works. It definitely works. Rents are lower there, but Evansville's a very blue collar. It's got good blue collar business. Toyota has a big plant. There's a lot of plastic facilities, and so it's a good sized city, and so it is good for multifamily. And so I'd love to and kind of into that Kentucky kind of area, and is good, like, 'cause it's right on the river. But that's the next step for us, is getting something larger, a 30, 40, 50, 100, somewhere in there. And
sure.
But what we would like to do is kind of as little amount of investors as I know you guys are big into the syndication, and not a lot of people are, but right now I think our goal is, we have had some other people invest with us, like give us 50 grand and we'll go buy this house and we'll pay them back out. But I haven't gotten to the point where we're like syndicating deals, and I'd love to learn more about it. I just, I think more people sometimes adds more headaches, but I've never done it, so I don't know.
So there is, yes. So, I mean, that's certainly a concern of a lot of people. I'll say this though, with syndication, the way that syndication is set up is you typically have a very small group of general partners, and then all the investors are limited partners. So
Yep.
I don't know if this is like, you want to go around saying this kind of thing, but realistically, the limited partners don't have any say in anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, but when we do it and they're friends or something, and they,
right,
I just feel like it could. I know they don't really have any say, like legally but
yeah,
it's like, oh, I think we could do this or this, and then you don't do it. And it's just, I don't know.
What my experience with that has been, because you're 100% right. Like everybody that invested in our last deal was a friend of mine, and I wouldn't ever treat them like that. But nobody's ever even suggested, because I think they see the amount of time and energy.
They know that you know what you're doing, and that's how most of my friends would be too. But I think these are just things I'm thinking of as what could go wrong, kind of thing. And I always like think of that. But I'm syndication is the natural progression, and that's where we're probably going to be, and I hope to be there. Just got to get there first.
Yeah, absolutely. So so what are your next steps to try and get there?
Well, so we've got our commercial broker that does a lot of, like, looks around in Evansville and tries to find some off market deals. I think that's a market that we're looking at, just because I know it, and I'm comfortable, and I'm familiar with somewhere within an hour of there, just because buying in Nashville, I think the city is going to keep going up and do that. And I like Nashville for that appreciation play. I mean, we do, every property we have appreciates like crazy, but it's just so expensive to get in. And I don't want to buy now at like what it seems to be a peak. And then it doesn't go up at the rate that you think, or, something like that. So from a bigger, buying more units and rental cash flow, I love the smaller market, like in Evansville. Like it's it's outside. It's still got a lot of good things.
Geographically, you're closer to like a Memphis than a Evansville, huh? Or is they about the same distance?
No, Evansville is only 2 hours and 20 minutes north of here. Memphis is about 3.5, almost 4.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And I know I've got some friends who I've only been to Memphis a handful of times. My wife's sister lived there for a little while. I think there are great areas there, and you can get a lot of bang for your buck. I just know that there are some areas that are just pretty bad. And
I think we talked about this in like Memphis is like New Orleans, where you could have like $1 million house, and then a block over you can have like a $20,000 crack house. And it's and if you don't know the area, like I live an hour away from New Orleans. I worked in New Orleans for 7 years, and I don't invest in New Orleans because I don't know it well enough. Like when people send me a deal, I just don't know. And without getting in my car and driving an hour every time I analyze a deal, which is just not, it's not
Mhm.
practical. I
Yeah.
just don't do it. I probably
Yeah.
lose a lot of
I
good
feel,
deals.
I know. And I'm the same way. It's like, I feel comfortable. I would love to be within 2 hours of the properties we have so I can get there, and it's kind of a me not being able to let go thing. Like, I mean, with the property manager in Evansville, I've learned to let go a lot.
Yeah.
They've been handling a lot of stuff, but it's like, you want to be there. If something goes wrong, you want to be able to get there. And, I don't want a tenant who, if the roof caves in on them, I want to be able to get there and make sure it's going to get fixed. So they're not,
Sure.
slumming it or do whatever. It's like, I know some people like don't take care of their people that way. And I would feel miserable with that. If I was renting from somebody and my landlord
Oh,
wasn't like
oh,
instantly there.
my wife often accused me of taking better care of our tenants than I did at our own house.
Yeah.
She,
Oh,
I would race somewhere in the middle of the night. She's like, "Where do you go?" It's a leak or it's this. And she's like, "If that happened in our house, like you would take care of it next Saturday or something."
yeah. Oh, I know. And then my wife says the same thing. Like, I know one time we were on vacation in Paris. We were out of the country and the pipes froze on one of ours. So they didn't have water, but we were gone for 10 days and they had shot me a message, but I didn't have service over there. So finally, when I got it, we had to like leave early, come back because they had been without water for like 6 days. And I was like freaking out. And I was like trying to get plumbers, but it was like a thing where everybody's pipes were frozen. I couldn't get a plumber to get here. So I
Right.
came back and was doing it like underneath this house myself. We just got off a flight from Paris and I'm like, dead, it's tired and just going over there, crawling underneath the house with like a, kerosene heater trying to heat up their pipes. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Fun
Well,
stuff.
let's hop over to our radio round real quick. Just 3 questions to help our listeners get to you. I'm sure you're familiar with it if you listen to the
Yeah.
show. The first one is,
Yeah.
what's your favorite book?
I mean, I love reading and so one book that I read every year just to kind of, it's a more of a motivational than it really is real estate. It's The Slight Edge. I don't know if you ever read that, but it's just talking about like you take little steps, which, equate to a bigger thing. So I read that every
Yeah.
year. It's just a
Yeah.
really good book in that. It's
People,
more self-help than
yeah.
real estate
No,
mind.
well, I mean, I'm huge into the self-help and every
Yeah.
successful person I know is huge into the self-help, and every unsuccessful person I know can make fun of you and tell you how hokey the self-help stuff is.
Yeah.
But there is, a lot to be said about that concept of just slow, steady, consistent habits over time is what really,
Mhm.
it's very few giant leaps. Nobody's going
Exactly.
out and like, winning the national championship like that. That's what made it's like, it's going to practice every
Yeah.
single day. It's
Yeah.
you,
And
you lose weight. Oh, you don't go and do like this insane intense workout and then like lose 8 pounds overnight. You do consistent steady workouts for 6
yeah,
months while you
take and
sacrifice
make them
every
a little
single.
bit longer. It's like if you worked out for 30 minutes the one day, work out for 31 minutes the next, and 32
Right.
minutes. And then in 2 weeks, you were working out for an hour. And I love that mindset of like, you just add a little bit to it, and use that. It's those baby steps. It's read 10 pages a day. It's,
Yeah.
do those little things that will equate to a big outcome.
So I'm actually doing 75 hard right now. Have you heard of that challenge?
I've heard you talk about it on your podcast, and I didn't know what it was and then I was like looking it up. But yeah, how's
Yeah,
that going?
it's going great. So I'm very satisfied. I mean, I think I'm like 31, 32 days in, but I'm very satisfied with like the physical progress I've made. And I just finished a really good book. One of the things that it kind of has brought to my attention is like how many excuses I usually make. I used to read a lot, but now I got kids and properties and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, I just don't
Hmm.
have time to read. I'll listen to audiobooks. Well, it's not the same. You're not really
Yeah.
digesting it the way you would if you read it. And I'm a really slow reader. It takes me 30 minutes to read 10 pages. But I mean, I just finished a huge book that, because I've read 10 pages a day. And like looking
Yeah.
back now, I'm like, well, there you go, 300 pages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's something that I'm going to incorporate. I want to continue even after I'm done with 75 hard because it's easy. I can make time to do 2 separate
It's one of those
workouts a
things that
day.
just have to make it a habit. It's easy to do, but it's easy not to do. And
Right.
that's what I like that book is. I read it every year for that reason, because it motivates you to just, it's like, yeah, it's easy not to get up at 30 minutes earlier and do a little workout, or an hour earlier. It's easy not to put your running shoes on and go outside and run a couple miles, but it's easy to do it
Absolutely.
too once you get used to it.
100%. I'm going to check it out. What is your favorite quote?
So that's one of them from, I think it was in that book. I write this quote down. I'm big about like journaling and writing my goals down. So this was
absolutely.
one.
I have journaled and written my goals down every morning for the last 400 and something days in a row.
I mean, I think that, it really just, even subconsciously, it just, when you have that and like I know that's a lot of these podcasts, talk about like have your vision board of like where you want to be and what you want to do. And it's amazing. Like I went back and look at a vision board from like 2 years ago, and like we have half the stuff on there.
Right.
Like that's perfect. And you don't even think about it. You're like, man, I didn't even realize we did do that.
I've written my goals down at the end of the previous year, every year since 2014. And so I can pull it up in my notes in my phone where I have my goals of 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017. And sure enough, I'm hitting them along the way. But in 2020, the beginning of 2020 was when I got intense about writing them down daily. And I got these little journal I like. And so I ordered like 12 of them off of Amazon, and I keep filling them up and just stacking them up in my drawer.
I love doing that. That's what I was going to say. My quote that because I writing those quotes down and reading them. My wife's big on reading these things every day, and because you have to say it. You can't just put it in your phone and never look at it,
right.
Or like a lot of people like do that. But so it was, a journey starts with a single step, not with thinking about taking a single step.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, because I know like you said, you have so many people who just like, oh, well, they overthinking it. You just got to jump in and do it. And then you'll learn, and it just takes time, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do outside of work?
I mean, we love the outdoors. So we go to the lake a lot, go boating, go camping, hiking. I'm a big sports guy. I'm a diehard Purdue Boilermaker fan. Go Drew Brees.
Nice.
So I love playing basketball, love just being outside and doing that. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for having us. And I really hope that you can come back on in a year and tell us about your first large apartment deal. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on your progress and watching your journey. And we're anxiously anticipating your return to
I hope so.
Tell us about your next big deal. How can our listeners find out more about you and get in touch with you and learn from you? Because if you want to go buy a bunch of apartment complexes with a bunch of other people's money, you need to start networking like crazy.
I know I'm definitely slacking in that department. I've been a small group kind of guy, but yeah, I mean, right now it's either through, I got rid of some social media stuff just to try to focus, not be so distracted. But I still have LinkedIn. Is a great way to do it. Just Jacob Vanhooser, and then just email or phone. My email is just JAVANHOO@gmail. And then my phone number is 812-604-7937.
Awesome. Jacob, thank you so much for having us, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rent Roll Radio Show, brought to you by Crestworth Capital. We hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating and review. You can also visit us at crestworthcapital.com or rentrollradio.com, or follow us on Facebook at Rent Roll Radio or at Crestworth Capital. If you would like to reach us, feel free to shoot us an email at info@rentrollradio.com or sterling@crestworthcapital.com. We hope you come back next week to join us on some more of our journey. Until then, happy investing.